Your next favorite podcast pick starts now. Here's the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to the Professor and Heather Ann.
Although we don't have all the answers, we hope we can encourage and excite you. We're here sharing our lives to inspire you to make the most of the second half of your life.
This is our 24th episode of our first season of the Professor and Heather Ann.
Amazing.
Can you believe it?
It's been something.
And you didn't really want to do it at first. You almost backed out.
Okay, so, I of course have a lot of experience speaking, giving lectures, giving conference talks, and writing, publishing, but not about my personal life. It's always been either academic topics or it's been reflections on my professional experience. And so when Heather first said, we're going to do this podcast and talk about our lives, it was I found it uncomfortable. I had the idea for a long time that my personal life is none of anyone else's business. And so now it's like, okay, well, now it's going to be other people's business.
Then you married me, so it's all over. It's everywhere. So, but my question to you was, are you going to be willing to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly?
And I don't think I gave you a completely satisfactory answer. But
you just said, oh, okay. I mean, you still look scared, but you said okay.
So the first attempt at recording the first episode, where we're just explaining, why we're doing this podcast, what it's about. It ended up for technical reasons we couldn't use that, but I kind of wish I could hear it because I think I sounded pretty nervous and uncomfortable.
All right, and we are recording. Okay, you feel ready? Get your notes. I love it. Okay, remember, this is to show the world who you are. Be yourself. You don't have to be perfect. So, episode 1 of the Professor and Heather Ann.
Welcome to the first ever episode of the Professor and Heather Ann.
I'm the Professor.
And I'm Heather Ann.
We are here to share our experiences and have fun talking about them and hopefully inspire some of our listeners.
We both were, because we had no idea what we were doing or how we were going to do this, or we just kind of jumped in blindly and trusted the people around us and was like, okay, this is what we're going to do.
And now I'm comfortable. Now I'm comfortable with sharing stuff. I also, in addition to this podcast, I have a Substack. It's called From Campus to Compound. And sometimes what I write is about, like the one that just dropped yesterday was kind of personal. And there too, I've just gotten a lot more comfortable with writing that way.
And is that because I've, as I often say, brought the woo-woo out of you?
It is. It totally is.
I've got you to dive deeper into the feelings.
Well, there's the diving deeper, but then there's the, bringing it out for others to see.
And hear. So in this episode, we're wanting to really just do a recap of our season and everything that we've learned, the amazing guests that we have been very fortunate to have on our podcast, especially for our first season, and talk a little bit about what's happening next and talk about, we're going to have a second season and we're already making plans and talking to guests that'll be on in our second season.
Yes. We're very excited about the second season. But first, I'd like to ask you about, remind our listeners, what motivated you to start a podcast in the first place?
It just kind of came about because I do other things, national speaker, and I have several speaking engagements. Very fortunate to speak with a local company, Haruv, for the last few years and have, I speak at several of their trainings and conferences and stuff several times a year. So that's already been in the works and all the other stuff that I work on. But on a whim, I just decided to sign us up for America's Favorite Couple. I saw some advertisement. It was like, why don't we do this? And we actually went pretty far. We did decide to kind of end our reign just because of different things. But
we stayed in the competition for
weeks and weeks, and we had quite a few votes, and it was quite interesting. And then actually our producer is the one that kind of suggested, hey, let's, take this to the next level, and maybe you should do a podcast. And I started doing research and realized that there's a lot of women my age doing podcasts, partly because of all the things that we're going through, even what we talked about here on our podcast. But I found that there wasn't a lot of couples that were just talking about midlife stuff and reinventing your life and hormones. And, we were brought up in a time where you just don't talk about a lot of things and you keep things hidden. And I'm in the part of my life where, that's not going to work for me anymore. I just talk about everything. And I make you talk about everything, whether you want to or not.
But
so that just that's how we started from that. And we actually launched the first episode November of 2025. And
it's been weekly.
It's been
ever since.
Every Wednesday.
Yes.
New episode drops, and we've had a lot of fun.
So I want to talk about what it's been like interviewing guests. Because for me, I hadn't interviewed someone since, I was on a school newspaper and as an undergraduate, and I very briefly did ethnographic field work, which is a different kind of interviewing. But I hadn't interviewed anyone in decades. And I was sort of pleasantly surprised at how quickly I was able to get into it and, pose the right kinds of questions. Of course, our producer has been very helpful in suggesting.
Our producer has been very helpful with helping us with the questions and how to format each episode. So we're very fortunate.
We are. But so how have you felt like you've gotten comfortable, gotten better as an interviewer?
I have, and I've gone back and listened to our first couple of podcasts, and we were just like, as I'm sure all people who have started a podcast and have never done this before, and it's the same thing. It's very easy for me to go in front of an audience, and I have spoken in rooms where there's been several hundred people, and that's easy to do because I know the story, but to sit down and same thing, talk, or when we've had guests, I've never interviewed anybody, not in the sense of a podcast. I have interviewed potential employees before.
Oh, that's a whole different thing.
And that's a whole different thing.
It's a stress test.
Yes. So you're wanting to get out certain information. So it's been a lot of fun. And I think what truly helped was a lot of our guests. We have had some truly amazing guests. Majority of them we knew. Majority of them we did business with. We actually do business with them. So I think that helped with the comfort level of us interviewing and having conversation with them. But then we also had guests on that we didn't know.
We didn't know.
But it was amazing to learn their stories. And I like connecting people. I like listening to people's stories. For the majority of my life, I've always had people just come up to me and start sharing their stories with me. And so I think it's been kind of easy to move into this. And The main thing I think has made the difference for us is we're having fun with it.
Absolutely. It went from being mostly stressful to being mostly fun.
Mostly.
Yeah.
And we've learned a lot of things about technology and how a podcast works, because how you think a podcast works is not anywhere. How all the behind the scenes stuff and all of that is quite a bit of work.
Yeah. Yes. It to listeners or viewers, it looks and sounds a lot easier than it is.
You just hook up microphones, start having conversations. That's not really how it goes. And so being able to track numbers and all of that, and we have over 350 downloads. We've had listeners in multiple countries, all over the country. So it's not just
our friends and family.
Yes, it's not just our friends and family, which we were afraid of, that it would just be friends and family listening to us. So, but your mother listens to us every week.
Yes.
And she gives opinions on whether she liked the episode or not. So,
and before this, she didn't even know what a podcast was.
No, but now she's just like you called the other day, and she was like, "I'm listening to your podcast with your sister." So so we appreciate that. So a shout out to Israela for listening to our podcast. So hopefully our number one fan.
So our guests, what we're going to do now is talk about the themes that we've covered and the guests who've addressed some parts of those themes. And so our producer has very helpfully organized a list of all the guests, and it falls into 4 categories: child abuse and trauma awareness, house and home related issues, relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but also friendships and community. And then 4th, health. So we'll start with the child abuse and trauma awareness.
As we've discussed on almost every episode, I come from a childhood trauma, and I've made it my mission to share my journey, to help others, inspire others. I'm constantly inspired by so many advocates, both local and national level. We've had some amazing guests regarding trauma. Jennifer Hayes Grudo, how protective experiences rewire a traumatized brain for calm. We talked about ACEs and PACEs. That's something that has become something that I talk a lot about. I've known about ACEs and
adverse childhood experiences.
Correct. And PACEs is something that I have only learned about in the last few years. And it just kind of helped me click with everything. ACEs talks about all the trauma and the different things that happen into your life, and they give you a score. And mine is a 10. And then the positive things that have happened in my life my score is a 9. And so having that conversation and talking in that episode with Jennifer was amazing to help give information, and also important for me to have her on about giving encouragement, because positive things, even if you didn't have positive things that happened to you in your childhood, you can turn those into positive things now. You can, and Jennifer talks about that. So having her on as a guest was just kind of like somewhat of a dream come true, and being able to have that conversation and be able to share, because I find a lot of people, especially women my age, are starting to talk more about the trauma that they experienced as a child or in first marriages. And that's one of my main things when I share my story is I share it to get other people to talk about it, because I truly feel how we're going to make a difference in these childhood traumas and stuff is by talking about it. So that was one of my favorite episodes. We've had Suzanne Stewart, who is the director of the Family Safety Center here in Tulsa. Name of the episode was You're Not Alone, Finding Safety, Hope, and Help. And we talked about all the different programs. They just recently built a 65,000 square foot building to bring all the services to help people that have been through trauma and help them navigate. Sometimes it's legal. Sometimes they have to go to court. Sometimes it's just finding the services that they need to get the things done in their lives. And they'll be growing and they'll be adding more stuff. But one of the things that I have found through my journey is a lot of the nonprofits and stuff sometimes do not work together. And the Family Safety Center is changing that and having multiple agencies come together to help victims and survivors. So that I've been fortunate again. That's one of my pet passions. And then we had Karen Smith with Hope After Trauma, Rebuilding Resilience, Resilient Futures with Camp Hope. So a lot of people have over the years heard me speak about Camp Hope, and Camp Hope is a organization that helps children go to summer camp for free. If they've lived through trauma. And as soon as I found out about this program, then wherever I am, I often talk about it, partly because I would have loved to go to a camp like this, just to go to a camp where, because when you grow up in trauma, you hide things. You don't let people know what's happening behind your closed doors. And to be able to go to a camp and know that if you accidentally said something or did something, that nobody's going to think twice about it because all the other kids have gone through the same thing. Have all gone through some type of trauma, maybe not the exact same trauma that you did. So Camp Hope is another passion of mine. From
my perspective, throughout being married to Heather, I learned a lot about how to be a supportive partner for someone still healing from childhood trauma and major life crisis. And a couple of the guests we had who reflecting more on their own experience rather than, partly on their own experience and partly about helping others. But Rochelle Hudson, the owner of Firefly Kombucha Brewery in Tulsa. So the title of the episode was How a Single Mom Built Oklahoma's First Kombucha Brewery. And so she talked about overcoming domestic violence at a young age, a teenage pregnancy, loss, grief, and now is the owner of a multi-million-dollar kombucha brewery, which is expanding into other kinds of business as well. So it was a very inspiring
I loved her story. And she shared some things with us that she hadn't made public before. And again, that was very encouraging. And I hope that even if it just helps one listener with making some different changes or going after a dream that they have, that knowing that they can make that happen. Her background is one of those things that I get a lot of is when people find out about my background and that my mother was in prison, they look at me like, wow, well, how are you the person you are today?
How did you get here?
And so Rochelle's episode is just amazing and just empowering, and being able to have her on and hear her story and try her kombucha was it's really good. So highly recommend to our listeners to go and get some.
We're going to miss it.
No, I'm going to have conversation with her to see about how we can distribute it in Virginia, especially around our area. Yes. I'll take it to the farmer's market. That's how much I like it. So that'll be good. And then we had Gina Waterfield, healing trauma through somatics, breath, and everyday rituals. She shared her devastating journey especially the last couple of years. She's lost a lot of important people in her life, her husband and her son, and some important people in her life, and just how functional healing methods and how she found success in healing from that and how she helps clients with the same thing. So two incredible women with two amazing different stories. And again, one of the major topics that keeps coming up in our episodes is resilience and just.
Yes, that you can bounce back from even the most devastating experiences.
And there's two women. So I encourage our listeners, if they have not listened to those episodes, that they need to go and listen to those.
Then we had some guests who talked about, with whom we explored topics related to housing, home, what is home, and financial planning, which can be related to that, since often people's major assets are their homes. So we had Mark Bullock, who I used to be talking about. Mark is the realtor that you've worked with for many years, and gotten lots of people into homes with. And so the title of the episode was "The New American Compound: Multigenerational Living Without Losing Space or Self." And so we talked there about right sizing.
And the importance of that. There's more and more families that are looking to right size, looking to have compounds. Part of the reason why we had Mark on is just to let listeners know, a little bit more of what's happening in real estate, but also this is becoming more common. I'm getting more and more calls about this very thing, and have been for the last 5 years. And it just seems like a lot of people are moving towards that, including us. We are moving to Virginia. We bought a little bit of land from my best friends, and we're now going to be neighbors. We haven't been neighbors since we were 8 years old. But that's what we're looking to build, is just our own little community.
So
of family.
People wanting to live near people that they can trust, whether that's family or close friends. And it's, in a certain way, it's, trying to replicate or to go back to the kind of living that
that used to be.
Yeah, right.
Because it used to be a generational, where you would have multi-generations living under one roof. I don't know exactly when. You need to do a little study on that, of when that started changing. But we're also one of the few cultures that I think the way everything is today, and especially with COVID, it's changed quite a bit. I think before that, just from my personal experience with mortgage lending, is that, kids are 18, get out of the house, you have your own space, you have mom and dad living in another state, another town, across town. But I think families are shifting.
And then the elderly are segregated often
to retirement homes or nursing homes. So I think that's changing. I'm finding more of my clients are wanting to be more multi-generational, live under one. May not necessarily be everybody live in the same house, but we have several houses on one property where everybody's living. And, in other cultures, this seems to be more of a common thing than it is here in America. So it's very interesting to see that shift and start seeing where multi-generations are living on one property and sharing. And part of it's sharing responsibility.
Yes. And so, in some ways that might be the most difficult thing for Americans who, there's kind of a tendency for people to become atomized and sort of self-focused. And so this is...
Well, and we've even had this conversation with your mother. as we've talked about on other episodes, your mother is going to be coming and living with us. And once we, get the house and everything finished, but there are things that we're going to be doing. So I will be traveling for business. I will be going back and forth and speaking engagements and different things. You will be traveling as well. You have certain things on the horizon where you're going to be going and speaking at different campuses and stuff.
Yes.
And another project that you have going. So one of the things your mom asked us a couple of weeks ago is, are you always going to be there? And our response was, we may not always be there, but our friends are going to be there. And we're already starting to look towards that because my best friend, her dad and her stepmother lives there with them. They have their own cottage. Your mother's going to have her own space as well. She won't be living under the same roof as us. So she still has her independence and gets to have time by herself, but we'll always have somebody there at all times. And we're already looking to, okay, we're taking a trip at this time. They're taking a trip at this time. So we're already making
cooperative elder care.
Yes.
That's going to be one of the things on the compound.
So, and something that we'll dive more into on the next season.
Absolutely.
Because again, that's becoming more and more popular. And I think a lot of that also has to do with it's just crazy how expensive nursing homes and retirement facilities and stuff have become. And
oh yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to turn over your house to them.
It is amazing if you have not gone through it. I've had several friends go through it, but it's like you have to liquidate everything in order to even be considered to be accepted into some of these places. And so that's a whole nother topic.
We had a guest, Jamie Miller, an attorney, and the episode was titled Estate Plans That Prevent Family Fights. And so this got into sort of the nuts and bolts of first it was why you need a family trust and then how you set one up. That too many people just wing it, trust to the goodwill of everyone.
Of their family members. Sometimes they'll just do a will and think that that's enough. One of the reasons we shared that we do have a trust ourselves, and one of the reasons is we have children from previous marriages. So I have personally seen it in my family. Money changes people, and we just wanted to make sure that things were handled the way we wanted them to be handled. And I think the importance of our children not having to go to probate and go to court and settle things and do things. We were, through the trust, we're able to say, this is what we want to happen. And that way we can.
Yes.
So, because it gets messy. So, we had Kristen Schweitzer on. The episode was From Overwhelm to Organize, Practical Steps to Declutter, Downsize, and Move with Less Stress. We have personally used her when we first moved here because we had to combine 2 households.
So
and
she organized our pantry and the
kitchen
and the walk-in closet.
It was amazing, and one less thing that we had to think about. But also, I know she gave us some helpful tips about your mom and how we can help her with the move, because obviously she can't bring all of everything that she has. So she gave us some practical tips on that, practical tips on moving, even some practical tips for us moving to another state. So especially when you have elderly parents and having to deal with that, that's one of their specialties, is helping them transition to, the next steps of their life.
So there's a psychology to it too. And one of the impressive things about Kristen is that, she's figured out ways to get people to think and feel in ways that make it easier
and let
for
go
them
of stuff.
Yes. to let go of stuff.
And the other thing we talked about was your kids do not want your stuff. So figure out what you're doing with it. My boys have definitely told us there's a few things that they want, but most of it's like, we don't want your stuff, Mom. You need to get rid of it. So, and then we had Holly Mullen, Health Starts at Home, the missing link in healing your journey. Total stress load, healthy home, how your living environment directly impacts your health. She had some great information.
Yeah, this was, very, stuff that you wouldn't necessarily know. And it's surprising, but very useful information about how all kinds of aspects of, she talked a lot about mold, how, mold in homes can have a very serious health effects on some people, but all kinds of other aspects of the environment, noise, and so actually, so this episode sort of falls partly in the home category and partly in the health category.
It does. And we talked about, because one of the things that we're doing is I'm moving the house to cleaner products. We've cleaned up our eating, less processed stuff, more whole foods. And so having that conversation, and I feel like a lot of people are looking to do that, not just change how they're eating, but change how they can have a healthier home for themselves, for their pets, and still feel like you can live in your house without it being sterile and
right
cold, and because that's what we do. We live in our house and it gets dirty.
So we had a number of several guests who talked about issues to do with relationships. And I see that we only had one guest who talked about romantic relationships, but there were a number of episodes where there were no guests, and we talked about
our
love story. But there was just one guest who focused on romantic relationships, and that was Jamie Anderson. I'm realizing now we had 3 guests named Jamie.
Oh, we did, didn't we?
Jamie Anderson, the episode was titled "Choose the Relationship You Want, Not Just the Person You Like." And she's a relationship expert and singles guru. And talked about.
She had some great information, not just for singles, but for couples. We openly discuss, we met online, and the things that we had to navigate. We both came from, previous marriages. Both of our marriages were long-term, so we had a lot of baggage, and we've talked about, how we navigated that, how we really worked on making sure we weren't bringing in baggage from our previous relationships and truly making our relationship just about us, not other people.
Not replicating the bad interaction patterns that had happened in our previous marriages, which is, alarmingly an easy thing to do.
It is. It's easy to get into that. And so Jamie helps with that and helps. She does different singles things around town and helps bring couples together. She's not a matchmaker, but she is a relationship coach. So she can help singles, but she can also help married couples as well. And then our other Jamie
Krems, talked to us about friendship. And so she's a psychology professor at UCLA. She does research on friendship. It's a very understudied topic in psychology. And she's brought a lot of new insights to it from evolutionary psychology. And so she talked about things like what people value in friends, how there are differences between women and men in regard to this, how there's a certain amount of competition for friends. So because people, they only have the time and energy for a limited number of friends, and some friends are frankly more valuable than others. And so, there's a kind of there's a competitive side to thinking about friendship. And she also talked about ways that that people can.
And it was a very fascinating episode for me because I talk a lot about my best friend, and we've been besties for 49 years now. So, so her episode was amazing and had great information, and the research she's doing is just amazing.
Yes. And there was Judy Sunderman. Community is medicine for an aging world. So she's with the Tulsa Newcomers Club. And so the theme of that episode was the importance of community, and especially as we age, it's well known that this is it's actually a public health crisis in this country. It turns out that loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
And she even shared a little bit about her story on how she moved to Tulsa and really had no friends here. And she moved right when COVID hit.
Yes.
And so she was stuck in her apartment until she was able to go out and explore and do things and meet people. And she found Tulsa Newcomers, which is an organization that is in all states and in a lot of communities. So that episode wasn't just about, here in Tulsa, but it was about how to just look up newcomers in your area, and you could probably find a club in your area. I joined last year. I've already looked up for one for the area that we're moving to now because it was a great opportunity. I met amazing women from all different walks of life, and everybody had different stories and wide range of ages. They do have a tendency to be older women, but still a wide range of ages and different women, and I found it very fascinating. But it's the importance of forming those relationships and having those relationships at an older age.
Yes. And then we had 4 guests who talked about various aspects of health, staying healthy. And a theme, which ran through most of them anyway, was the importance of being skeptical of the medical establishment. And I say skeptical, I don't mean, we would never say, and I don't think any of our guests would ever say that you should reject conventional medicine and just rely on indigenous methods, on herbs and chanting and so forth to stay healthy. No one's going to say that. But the importance of being skeptical.
Well, especially for women. For so many years, decades, centuries, women have not been heard when it comes to our hormones. We've been told most of our life, well, this is just what happens. This is, you get older, you go through menopause.
You're going to feel lousy.
It is what it is. You need to accept it. But again, women my age, Gen Xers, are no, we're not. We're fighting back, and we're coming up with solutions, and we're talking about it. And it was great to have several guests talk about it. We had Tia Christ, Why Feeling Normal is Not the Same as Being Well, nurse practitioner focused on functional medicine, hormone balance, and preventative medicine. I actually started seeing her, and my hormones have increased drastically. I'm feeling so much better, and I'm starting to feel more like myself and wanting to do more things, excited about things again. Because last year was a hard year for me. I just felt horrible.
Tired in a very deep sense.
And not just being tired. I just felt exhausted. And through her help, found out that my regular doctor was not testing my hormones like he said he was when he would tell me everything's fine, because my testosterone alone was just 16. And since I've and that's still considered normal.
Okay.
That's on the low normal side. I still had some, so I was being told
it was more than zero.
Yes. So at least it's good. But now that has, quadrupled, more, even quadrupled. I'm up in the hundreds now. And we're working, and it's a process that takes time. It's not just a quick fix. Mm-hmm. But so many more women are like, I want to feel better. I want to feel myself. I am young. I have so many more things to do in life. So having her on and being able to talk about that. Shay Razi, The Hard Truths About Menopause, How to Advocate for Yourself, Test and Treat with Confidence. She's a Tulsa news anchor, and she went through perimenopause at 37, had a miscarriage, and the health issues she dealt with. Now, she was very open and honest and talked about her issues and her experience and just the devastation of even when she was told, well, you're in menopause at 37. And okay, what do we do next? What is there? I'm 37. I feel like I shouldn't be going through this. And it's just something that they don't talk to us about. Like, you should start getting your hormones checked in your 30s so that you have a baseline of where your hormones are. So then that could be your baseline. And, as you
try to maintain that.
To try to maintain that. So, women, fellow Gen Xers, find the right person. And if your doctor is not listening to you, because that was something we talked about, even with Shay, is that there was a time that I left the doctor's office just crying because it's like, this is not who I am. I don't feel like me. Why is that happening? And just getting the same standard, well, everything's fine.
Yeah. We got these numbers here, and
the numbers look fine.
Yeah.
Tia had talked to us about the numbers do not tell us everything. So,
one of our turns out one of our most popular episodes was Nikki McCutcheon talking about light therapy, real food, and the second half of life. So, light therapy is phototherapy, which is it's a way of reflecting light from the body back into the body. That stimulates like the production of peptides and so forth. These patches by which this therapy is implemented so we've used them. We can testify to how they help us feel better. And so Nikki went into the science behind it and
the patents. This is a real patch. It's proven of what it does. It has, how your body can basically heal itself. And she was able to talk about the technology and everything behind the patches and how it's truly helping people that are having problems with walking, people that are having problems with other ailments. One of the things that has helped me tremendously with is I have a lot of hip pain. And at the beginning of last year, I was seriously thinking I was going to have to go to an orthopedic and find out what's going on. Because my body has just sustained a lot of trauma, not just from sports and things that I've done to my own body, but the trauma that I had as a child. So I was really starting to get worried about it. And after a few months of being on the patches, how that drastically changed my hip pain and how my hips are functioning better. And just the other day, I came home from a weekend away and my foot was really bothering me. So I was able to control that pain, have the pain go away without having to have
take drugs.
take a bunch of, take some painkillers or, take a bunch of Advil or Tylenol or anything to help suppress the pain, not necessarily make it go away, but suppress it.
And then there was Erin Hawkins, How to Build Strength, Eat Smart, and Eat Well. So she talked about things working out, and especially weight training. So it turns out that as you're aging, it is more important to maintain and increase muscular strength. It's more important to do that than to maintain aerobic. It's important. It's important also for your cardiovascular health. Yes, you should
have healthy bones.
But yes, to have healthy, have strength and healthy bones, and so you're less vulnerable to, falling.
Or if you fall, you're able to get up.
You're able to get up again. And so she talked about programs for weight training for, how they can be individually tailored to, your particular circumstances.
And you can start weight training at any age.
So I worked with weights back in my 20s, but then I started again just last year, and it's
2 years ago.
Yes, it's 2 years.
It's 2 years now,
and I've been very happy with.
You added the yoga
results.
last year.
That's right.
So as you've heard, we've had such a wonderful time reflecting on our first season. This makes our 24th episode. We've had 16 guests. We are continuing our podcast journey.
As you're listening to this is in mid-April is when this episode is dropping. So we are at our new home in Virginia. Well, we are the house itself has yet to be built, but we're in
our carriage house.
Our carriage house, and settling in to life in a new place and meeting new people and all that. But we're already working on season 2, and we have some guests who are already committed, and then there's some other people who we would like them to be guests. We're probably as you're listening to this, we're probably talking to them.
So we're looking forward to sharing more, talking about our journey, which also comes down to the podcast and why we're doing this is that, we have drastically changed our lives in midlife. You're retired, but you're starting to take on these other projects and stuff now. I'm in the mortgage business, but do national speaking and different things. And when we, in the move to Virginia, we're going to be trying new things, having maybe some chickens and goats and growing things. And
yes. Undoubtedly we'll have episodes in which you can hear the chickens and goats in the background.
I don't know about that, but okay, that sounds good. But, we're just here to encourage people are living longer. And I think a lot of it is, especially people our age, the boomers and the Gen Xers, whereas, we grew up in a different time. We grew up not talking about stuff. And that was what was important to us on this podcast, was to talk about the hard stuff and talk about the stuff that, we weren't supposed to talk about, and using your voice and changing your life.
Finding those new and exciting and fulfilling things to do in your 50s and 60s and beyond.
And beyond, because people are living a lot longer.
Yes.
We would love to hear from our listeners. Give us a follow on social media. Give us feedback, any ideas for maybe some episodes and guests. We would love to hear from you. We also, if you'd like to be a sponsor, we would reach out to us. We would love that. You can follow us on Facebook, The Professor and Heather Ann. You can find our podcast on all platforms.
Please subscribe.
And let us know how you liked our first season. And again, suggestions on
things we could do in
things
the
that we could do the second season, and things that maybe some topics that you would like to hear about, maybe some things that some of our listeners are dealing with and possibly think they're the only ones dealing with it. That give us some ideas.
Yes. I've learned more about you, and I've also learned more about myself in doing this podcast. And so it's like just the experience of talking about life, talking about our lives, and conversing with these remarkable, exciting guests we've had. It's really sort of like, it's like opened up new kinds of new ways of thinking and new ways of feeling in my life.
We've also had the honor of having several people reach out to us and tell us that they've liked the episodes, they've liked the podcast, they especially liked. I've had several women reach out to me and tell me that the episodes on menopause were very helpful, and because even in today's world, we think that we're the only ones going through certain things. So I've had several people reach out to me about your mother moving in with us, that this is happening more as well, and asking for advice and things. So that's been a privilege to be able to provide this information and get that out, which is why we wanted to do the podcast in the first place.
Yes, to help people. And yes, if any kind of problem you have, there's someone, there's some other people who have it, because it's a big world, and yes, you are a unique person, but almost certainly some of your experiences are partly shared by other people.
So, thank you for joining us for this season. Our first season of The Professor and Heather Ann. We can't wait to have you along for the next season. So join us here each week, my friend, where you're sure to get a smile. From lessons learned to mishaps, the adventures go on for miles. Here on The Professor and Heather Ann.
Listening to The Professor and Heather Ann.